Hi, welcome to this session. We are privileged, excited here to have Citi as a sponsor for the Climate Bonds Conference. And we're going to talk for a little bit now to Val Smith, who's Chief Sustainability Officer for Citi globally, about the work they're doing and how they're seeing what goes on. And of course, I want to grill her on what's really going on. Val, look, you're in an extraordinary position because you've got a new CEO that came in earlier this year and made a speech that I can only describe as electrifying markets in terms of its ambition and its comments about climate change and the need to transition. It was very exciting. But what does this mean practically? I mean, has anyone changed? Everyone's just still going into work, usually in their kitchen nowadays because of COVID, but whatever, still going to work and doing the normal stuff, or are things actually changing in the bank? Tell us the story.
Yeah, I think, the story behind Jane Fraser's announcement on her first day as CEO, which was that Citi would be net zero emissions by 2050, and we're also committing to net zero operations by 2030, is that there was a lot of hard work and discussion and debate, frankly, that went into that decision and that big announcement prior. And there's a lot of hard work that's happened since then. So as we were going into Jane's first day as CEO and talking about this commitment, and she made the decision to make this part of her day one announcement and priorities. Day one. So this was her day one announcement as CEO, and we knew that this was going to be a pretty monumental change for Citi. We knew it was going to also necessitate a monumental change for our clients. I think going in, Jane talked a lot about the need both for ambition, but also for rolling up our sleeves and doing the hard work of helping our clients to transition and thus transitioning our own business. Since that announcement, and I can get into more detail, but we have formed a net zero task force that pulls seniors from across the company into like a net zero community, if you will, that is learning and understanding how to execute on this commitment. I think it's fair to say that as much as we understood going into this, the sort of intensity of the work and the technical challenge of establishing your net zero plan and then of helping your clients to begin to understand how they're going to transition and what proof points we're going to ask for along the way. The technical challenge is real. So it's been pretty exciting to sort of dive into those details, but has also required and will continue to require an incredible amount of capacity building as this flows through our bank and as our clients are also taking up the mantle.
And to what extent have the clients taken up the mantle? Has been the reaction amongst your huge client base?
Well, I think we had some clients that were already ahead of us. And obviously there was a fair amount of analysis of where our clients already were before we made this commitment. So some clients are ahead of us and we have been learning from them. For example, on the topic of climate scenarios and what scenarios are out there, how some of our clients in the energy sector, for example, have been doing climate scenario analysis for years. Some clients are, I think, in the middle, understanding the level of ambition required perhaps, but still early days in terms of understanding how to execute on that ambition and frankly, understanding the options for business model transition. And I think some of our clients are going to need a lot of support and a lot of capacity building as they begin to understand how to transition. So if you think about Citi's particular global footprint, we're the most global bank in the world, and you think about what that means in terms of our clients in emerging markets, there is a lot of work ahead of us as a community and certainly for Citi to begin to help those banks, begin to help our clients, including some banks, frankly, to understand the metrics required to transition and to begin to think through those opportunities.
I mean, part of this is also how you structure a deal that can work given someone's got a big transition, often a very high CapEx load, even though CapEx is relatively low cost nowadays. You've got to make sure the returns are there. And I guess that's your whole business development, business advice, structuring side. There's lots of corners of Citi that must be having to be mobilized now.
Right.
Which means you've got a big internal job, right? Especially as Chief Sustainability Officer.
A
But
big
what does it look
internal
like?
job. I mean, I have to say, like, our bankers are definitely up to the challenge. And if you look at how really, I mean, I think it's fair to say that the green bond space, which Sean, you and your organization pioneered and continue to pioneer, that really was the big shift in terms of looking at sustainable finance as a whole and looking at those products.
Right.
So I think as we think about our clients transitioning, there's a piece of it that is around getting better metrics. Our clients have to develop better metrics, disclose better metrics. We all have to sort of get better at understanding how to measure our progress in our transition. And then there's a big role for sustainable finance products and for sustainable finance advisory. And, you know, put transition in front of sustainable for transition finance products and transition finance advisory. So the bonds market is really what pioneered that, right? Because now, as you see, as you look across, for example, all of Citi's different businesses, from, you know, debt to equity capital markets to our trade finance team, they are all looking at how we sort of put an ESG or sustainable or transition lens on like every product out there that we offer to clients. I don't think that's a huge exaggeration to say, you know, and when you think about the opportunity, you put up the guardrails, right? Defining, for example, as, you know, as CBI did, defining what's green in the bond market. You put up those guardrails, and then the ability to sort of innovate and execute within that, I think, is pretty incredible. And so that's what we're seeing inside Citi, that integration and flow of, you know, information around what's possible through to client products. Take that, marry it up with the bespoke, like one-on-one advisory to get that transformation to happen. And that's how I think it's going to evolve.
Val, you have made my day. This is so exciting. I mean, I know it's hard work. I appreciate there's a lot of work, but just the fact that you're telling me that it's going across multiple areas of the business is like what we want to see for those of us like climate activists needing to address climate change and address the risks of climate change. It is just music to my ears. And I want to actually phone up the Fed now and tell them about this, because of course they're looking at climate risk, as central banks around the world need to be looking at. But you said something very interesting, at least to our audience, which is about green bonds being a bit of a kicker for this whole work. And just explain what you mean a bit more about that, because I want to drive the message home to everyone.
Okay. Absolutely. And I will just say that I'm not saying this because this is the opening of the Climate Bonds Conference.
Thank you for that.
I think we make this point often, which is you know, as you look back, Sean, at, you know, pre-green bond principles, right? Your organization was beginning to develop the framework for a whole host of different sustainable bond opportunities across industries. But what we realized is that what the market needed is some definitioning and some guardrails. And I think the green bond principles helped to provide that.
Yep.
And helped to get us used to thinking about financial products, not just as plain vanilla financial products, but as products where you could put like the green on top of, the social on top of, and, you know, increasingly the integrated ESG on top of. So we've just taken that model through the financial system. I think we're not done. I think there's a lot more work to do in terms of really tightening up, you know, how are we defining green, how are we defining transition, and so on. But that framework, I think, is what we are taking to the KPI linked, you know, loan model, for example, taking through our trade finance, sustainable supply chain finance, like that sort of ethic of looking at, you know, putting the green lens on different products, I think began with CBI as well as the green bond principles.
And by the way, full credit needs to be given to Mike Eckhart, who used to be at Citi before he retired. Who was one of the drivers of the Green Bond Principles. But the interesting thing is, essentially, we got some basic deal flow going that's created business lines. And what some of my friends in banking are saying is this is proven to management that there really is a business line, an investor appetite here, which has then opened up the doors to be able to do more. Is that how it worked in Citi?
That is how it's worked in Citi. And I think for Citi, yes, like there's an element of the risk piece in here, you know, understanding climate risk, understanding different types of sustainability risk, and the challenges that presents to Citi and to our clients. But I think opportunity is naturally sort of a longer term motivator for human beings, including bankers. And
absolutely right.
And so what we've done at Citi is begin to sort of reorganize our business units to be positioned for the opportunity. I've been at Citi for 17 years, always in the sustainability function here. And the amount of change we've seen in the last 3 years is like kind of awesome. You know, we have just to give you a couple of examples, about a year ago during the peak of COVID, we established a sustainability and corporate transitions team within our banking group to look at all kinds of transition and, you know, play that advisory role to our clients as they seek to, you know, ratchet up their ESG performance. This year, we reorganized our business groups, focusing on the energy, power, and chemicals businesses into a single unit, the Natural Resources and Clean Energy Transition Team. These are like obviously interesting business names for, you know, banking teams, but I think more than that, it signals, first of all, how we see the transition opportunity as being very integrated as you look at the different ways that our clients are planning to transition their business models. And it requires a completely different mindset on the part of our bankers. And, you know, just to get back to this training piece, it requires a different kind of capacity building. And so when I look at, for example, our partners in our net zero journey, it's not just the ESG teams in Citi, you know, that we have embedded in different businesses. It is also those traditional banking teams that are right there with us doing the hard work of, you know, figuring out where our clients are today and figuring out where we need to help them to get to.
And I guess that's the point, isn't it? It's addressing the challenges, addressing the risks, but mostly taking advantage of these opportunities that are opening up through this transition. You mentioned transition a few times. And obviously there's a lot of high carbon, and as you know, one of the themes of this conference is about taking high carbon companies to the kind of place they've got to be in this transition. How much are you getting reception from the high carbon sector of the market, which has, you know, generally been challenged and found it tough to figure out what they should be doing? Is it positive? Is the engagement happening now, or is it still a bit of work to be done? What do you think?
The engagement is definitely happening now, and there is quite a bit of work to be done. Both of those things are true. You know, I've been impressed with the receptivity and the understanding of our clients in the hardest to transition sectors. And it's opened up, I'm not going to pretend that it's opened up conversations that are always easy. Yep. But I think it's opened up conversations that are pretty open and authentic, frankly. And, you know, they go something like this. You know, and the conversations are a little bit different with the leaders in the transition space versus the companies that are still, you know, getting organized and understanding what their transition possibilities are. But first of all, you know, in every time of change, clear communication and setting expectations is so important. And that's what we found with this time of change as well. So our net zero commitment on March 1st, Jane's first day, brought about a different level of client engagement. Help me to understand what you committed to. Help me to understand whether this means that you're going to like turn off the faucet of financing for my company today. Help me to understand what you're going to be asking from us as your client so that we can get prepared. And, I think that there's a little bit of a race to the top in the financial sector in terms of who is having that kind of engagement with clients. How openly can we communicate our intentions? And then, again, just to get back to the rolling up your sleeves and the hard work part, I think Jane said on her first day, we are making this commitment and we intend to work relentlessly with our clients to help them to transition. That word relentlessly, I think, is an interesting signal for the hard work. And what we've communicated to our clients is that we are here to do that hard work with you. And what we're hearing from our clients is that we're ready. We're ready to start these tough conversations and to look at our options. I'm not going to pretend that every client conversation goes like that, but I've been impressed with how many are sort of just tell us what you're doing, tell us what to expect so that we can, execute accordingly.
Well, I guess that's what today's about. Today's session about training, and we're privileged to have you as a supporter for this training and capacity building session. You mentioned that a couple of times in your speech, to get people to a stage where they can take advantage of the opportunities coming through. Now, it's a really exciting story. We've of course got a whole transitions day on Friday, as you know, and on Thursday we'll have folks like John Morton, Councillor to Janet Yellen, talking about the opportunity. US Treasury, whatever. So it's so exciting that people are beginning to appreciate that this isn't about a problem. This is going to be a way to get sustainable returns as well as sustainability for the planet. That's our option. I think we need to wrap up. We could talk for hours, Val, I have to say, and I would love to have a chance to have more conversations with you about this in the future. We should look for opportunities. But as a takeaway for our audience, what advice would you give for everyone that's starting on the journey, that's a bit behind Citi going forward?
Well, I want to underscore that we don't really think about it as who's ahead and who's behind. Okay. This is, I'm a runner. And so I think about things in terms of preparing for a race. And, when we look back at the Olympics, right, the marathon, it's exciting at the end. But what I love are the stories of, the grit and resilience that it takes to get there. And I think this is sort of the marathon of our lives, right? And what I want to sort of leave with people is that, the marathon is the ambition. But underneath that ambition, there is an incredible amount of hard work. This is really hard stuff. And that it is not work that you can do in isolation. And so understanding your data needs, understanding the impacts of your work and your financing, understanding the financial products available to you, including, the range of bond products available to you. And, I would suggest to my financial sector colleagues that there is an incredible amount of learning happening. There are forums for sharing information to get that capacity building happening, forums like this one. Those are really important to take advantage of. And that I think our clients should really try to hold us accountable, for that capacity building as well. The ambition is exciting. The headlines are exciting. I think now we're in this pretty incredible implementation and integration phase, which, is where the real work is happening and where the, I think where the excitement behind the scenes is just as real. So I just leave it with that, with seeking out these capacity building opportunities and understanding, the transformation opportunities, the transition that has to happen, and working to accelerate both of those pieces.
And Joy, I can only feel joy at the words you're saying, Val. It's so exciting, honestly. You know, imagine, could we have had this conversation 5 years ago? No.
Right.
But we
And
are
that gives
having
you
the
hope,
conversation.
right? How quickly things are shifting and accelerating. It does give you hope,
Exactly.
which is a necessary ingredient as well.
Well, given the problems we're having around the world and the climate impacts, we're feeling the impacts now. We need all the help we can get. And this is absolutely a story of hope. I appreciate it challenging. I also really appreciate your comments, essentially about bringing everyone with us, which is how I'm going to characterize the necessity to make transitions with everyone, to give opportunities for all, which includes citizens, normal people, as well as companies that are in areas which will need to change. It's very cool. Well, thank you. Good luck. We need you to succeed, all of us on the planet. And we at Climate Bonds look forward to keeping on working with you on transitions, on resilience, all these sort of issues, and growing, of course, the green bond market that, as you said, has triggered some of this. We're going to hit about $2 trillion outstanding by the end of this year. It's getting substantial, and Citi has been a key part of that in developing it.
Thank you, Sean. It's been great to have your partnership, and we really appreciate Climate Bond Initiative's leadership. We really do.
Thank you, Val.